For the first time since the 2022 season, the Illinois Final Illini football team is ranked. They are now ranked 24th in the nation out of the top 25. Some are even trying to put them at number 23, so that just shows you the respect that Illinois is slowly gaining this season. They are now ranked 24th in the nation, being 3-0 on the season after their 30-9 win over Central Michigan for homecoming at the University of Illinois. They are ranked for the first time since 2022. Welcome into the Coach Steve Show. This is the ILL-INI segment where we cover everything with the University of Illinois athletics. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel so you can get this kind of content. Follow at Coach_Steve72 on X, the Coach Steve Show on X, Coach Steve72 on Instagram, Coach Steve Show on Instagram as well, and Coach Steve72 on TikTok. Welcome in. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check it out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. So Illinois comes away from Central Michigan at home, the 30-9 victory. Excuse me. Now heading into this week, as they open up Big Ten play this Friday when they travel to Nebraska, they will be ranked. What does it mean for Illinois to be ranked? This is the second time under Coach Brett Bielema's tenure that the University of Illinois is ranked. What does this mean? To some people, being ranked in the top 25 is not a big deal. This is a program where it's a big deal. We treat it as such like it was way back when NCAA football was out. And I said this, ever since the playoff, the top 25 seems to be not as meaningful. But to us Illinois fans, to the program, it means something to be ranked. And that's because last year we went the whole season without being ranked. It just shows the respect they are gaining around the country and shows where Illinois would be. Right now, everybody had Illinois at 2-1. They are now 3-0. That is not a big deal, but beating Kansas was a big deal. I know Kansas lost also last week, but Kansas is a good football program. And this is the type of momentum you want going into your Big Ten play. So we're going to discuss how they got the win over Central Michigan and what this means moving forward, as now they're going to open up their Big Ten play, and they have a tough Big Ten schedule, especially early on when they start with Nebraska, who is ranked now number 22 in the nation. We are 2 behind them. Penn State's number 10, and just so on. It just continues to roll forward. What we saw in this game over Central Michigan, it was a very close game in the first half, even though it did not feel that close. I know they won 30-9. Coach Brett Bielema played the Central Michigan game, I think when they were at Ohio State maybe, and showed that your non-Power 5 Division I teams can come in and beat teams, especially today where you have the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, people transfer, they can go to other schools. So some of these non-Power 5 schools have some really good players. And it's homecoming, a lot of distractions for homecoming. You have former players, former students, everything else, big crowd, big tailgate, and a lot of things can get away at your mind there a little bit. But it was a close game. Illinois had 13 at halftime. It's 13-6, and you were wondering if, they let Central Michigan kind of hang around a little bit. But then Illinois goes on to score 10 in the third and 7 in the fourth, only holding Central Michigan to 3 points. There's still a lot of positives that you could take away from this game. The first one is Luke Altmaier was crazy. He was really good. 19 of 29, 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. The big things that are sticking out is our receivers are getting better each game. And I said that as long as they get better each game and we can prove that we can throw the football and have playmakers that can go get the ball, and you take the defense's eyeballs off of somebody else. Everybody's eyeballs was always on Chase Brown and always on Isaiah Williams, right? Well, last year didn't really have anybody else for the eyeballs to be put on. A little bit of, Washington and such and Isaiah Williams, but there was nobody that could go get the ball, right? Well, yet Pat Bryant come away with 102 yards receptions and 2 touchdowns on 7 catches. That's huge. That just shows that they can throw the ball vertically. Sakari Franklin has chipped in with 66. So now you have 2 guys. They averaged 13 to 14 yards per catch. That was the biggest thing. Rushing, they had 137 yards rushing. Josh McCray finally getting into the game had 54. Valentine had 53. Fagan, 25, they really keyed in on him. He had the most carries, 10 carries for 25 yards, but he also had a rushing touchdown. This just shows that Illinois can be a balanced offense. Is a balanced offense. When Luke Altmaier is in control of the offense and is accurate in his throws, and you have guys that are going to go up and catch it and get yards after the catch, they are going to be a very formidable offense going into Big Ten play. The offensive line had a little bit of struggles there in the first half. They gave up a couple sacks and weren't getting it necessarily a couple hits on Luke Altmaier. I don't know if they're necessarily sacks, but giving up some big hits. And they were not as physical as they needed to be, I think. And in the second half, they really turned it around. I also think in the second half, Illinois is not a team or necessarily the mindset of, well, we got to keep some of our plays hidden. But I think what they decided to do in the second half and a little bit of the second quarter was just focus on what they're really good at. If they're really good at inside zone and counter, that's what they're going to do. If they're really good at these route combinations, that's what they're going to do. If they need to work on their key screens and pass and block on those key screens, that's what they were going to do. And that's what they decided to do. And just try to see if they have guys that can go get the ball. So I think they weren't very, I don't want to say conservative in the play calling. It just kind of felt that way, but it was more of, hey, we see where we're at. We respect this team because they're hanging around, but we do have to put our foot down. So we're going to call things that we know we're very good at and that we can execute. We're not going to get too fancy, too cute on anything and put our foot down and go score. And so when Luke Altmaier can stand there and throw for 242 yards, you start getting into Big Ten play and know, hey, Luke Altmaier can go off for a game like this, but we also got to watch all the running backs. That's a dangerous team that some of these Big Ten teams have to pay attention to. Defensively, they let up a couple plays, but I'm going to tell you right now, and I said this in my spring practice preview, I said this defense can be very fast, and they can be very physical. And I said that Scott is very physical, both of them. The linebackers can fly around and make plays. Their defensive line pressure. They can play man coverage now, and I was telling them that if they're fast enough to play man coverage, you're going to get similar-esque type of 2022 defense. And ironically, that was the last time they were ranked. And their stats are very similar to that defense. Now, we don't want to jump the gun on that defense because we are only about to play the fourth game. But this gives them confidence knowing what they did to Kansas and what they have done the first game and then against Central Michigan at home with all the hoopla, knowing that they can play a little loose, they can afford some of these mistakes. They can't afford the mistakes as they get in the Big Ten play. But I'm telling you right now, this defense is fast. They are flying around. They are hitting you. They are being very physical. Aaron Henry in his second year ever calling defense is starting to find his rhythm and figuring out the different tweaks that he needs to do as a coordinator. And I love how Coach Bielema didn't just try to replace him after last year, saying, okay, I'm going to let you grow. I'm going to let you learn. And then, figuring out the players we need and recruiting, transfer portal, putting it all together to have our identity that we need. And you are seeing that in these first three games. The Kansas game, you saw it a lot. This one, they can play man. They can play cover two man. They can zone blitz you and give you these different looks up front. They're in a four-man front. All of a sudden, they're in their three-man front, and they're able to do certain things, put pressure on the quarterback, tackle the running back. They are doing those things and being very physical. And again, they are okay. They do not panic if they give up. If it's 1st and 10, they give up a 12-yard play. They're okay if it's 3rd and 5 and they give up the first. Not really okay, but they know, hey, if they're going to chip down, we just can't let them score, right? So for Illinois, not giving up that many points this season. They really aren't. They gave up none to Eastern Illinois. I know it's my alumni. I hate to bring that up. Give up 17 to Kansas and 9 to Central Michigan. I already know. Well, look at their schedule and everything else. I do not care. They are playing an FCS school. Then they play 2 FBSs, right? Central Michigan is not a slouch of a football program. They go up and down, but they're no slouch. Kansas, it was really highly talked about by everybody. So they're not giving up that many points. And going into Big Ten play, their defense needs that confidence and knowing, hey, we know we can do this, right? We know that we can play this way. And we're okay being the underdog and not looked at, right? Me personally, I would rather not be looked at. So they really didn't do a lot of vanilla stuff. They stuck to what they're good at, and sometimes that's the best formula to try to come away with a win. Doing the best thing you can. If you're inside zone, wide zone team, that's what you're going to run that second half against Central Michigan. If you want to sprinkle in a little bit of counter, just that way it's practicing it in a game like situation, you go do that. If we really got to get good at our key screens, that's what we were going to throw. Hey, we really got to figure out a way to get our receivers the ball. We got to get Pat Bryant and Sakari Franklin the ball, and they're going up and making catches. How do we get the tight ends involved? Do we have the tight ends that can block? And that was the game plan that they stuck to. So what does this mean for Illinois going forward? Well, if your offense is, very confident, if Luke Altmaier is comfortable in the pocket and able to make these throws and able to command the offense, and he knows he's got receiver weapons that he can throw it to, that is going to be huge for the University of Illinois moving forward, because that's some of the things that they were missing. Old Brad. Nebraska's about to expose this defense with Walmart brand Patrick Mahomes. He is Walmart brand Patrick Mahomes. He probably eats at Raising Cane's also. I just want you to know, I think who's sponsored by them? Kansas. I think Kansas was sponsored by them for a little bit. I'm very curious about this Nebraska game because I didn't think Nebraska was going to be good or this good. The history of them, the way they were last year, I didn't think that they were going to churn the corner like they did. But people can make the same claim about Nebraska. You play UTEP first. You beat Colorado, and I don't think I thought Colorado was really good against North Dakota State, but I think that just says more about North Dakota State than it does Colorado. And then Colorado gets exposed to Nebraska. And I don't think Colorado has a lot of talent, but they're going to implode. Then you play Northern Iowa. You could make the same claim that Illinois and Nebraska have similar-esque schedules. I think Nebraska has good players. I think they're coached really well. I think it's going to be a very, very good game as they go to Nebraska. And what sucks is Brad, if you're still listening, I almost went to that game. We became friends with this couple on the honeymoon, and they live there, and they are Nebraska people, and offered us to go when it was a Saturday. Now they moved it to a freaking Friday. Why does college football have to be played on a Friday night? Well, because people are coming home from work, and they're going to watch it, and they don't have to get with their Saturday plans. What about us football coaches? We can't watch them on a Friday night. Like, why are we playing games on a Friday night? Come on. And it's at 7. Come on. Why are we scheduling games on a Friday? Make it Saturday. And it was perfect. It's going to be Saturday. Originally, it was Saturday at like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Going to drive there after my football game, take a little snooze, and then watch them. It was going to be cool. And I want to go see Nebraska Stadium. That would have been so cool. But I think, Illinois speaking, there are still mistakes that they have to fix. The pass protection has to be more consistent, and I know Coach Bart Miller is probably thinking the same thing, and he'll get those boys right. I think that they have to be more consistent on holding their blocks on the run game. And and we're putting a lot of pressure on Fagan at the running back position, but we have to understand people are trying to compare him to like Derrick Henry, and I understand why. I just don't know if he quite necessarily has the cutting, He's good at running people over. He's good at finding the hole and being shifty. But I just don't know if, like, in that situation against, like, a Nebraska's and they go play Michigan and all them, does he have the ability to make the fast cuts that he needs to, right? And so that running back room is just going to be, by committee. But at some point, they're going to have – whoever's hot, they're going to have to stick with, right? So I know they're rotating them right now in these first 3 games to try to figure out, like, do we know who the guy is? Do we know who's going to be the main running back? But they're going to have to figure that out. They're going to have to figure out who is their guy, because Fagan can go out. He could be like a tight end. He's huge. I think it'd be kind of cool to put him at a wing with like, McCray in the backfield or whoever, and put him at a wing and go out for a route, go block somebody. I think he could be very versatile that way. So they're going to have to figure that part out. But the receiver part, they're growing and getting better, which I'm super excited for. I think Luke Altmaier, he showed how accurate he can be. He just has to consistently be accurate. Defensively, I'm actually kind of excited defensively. They're not, again, this is not 2022. I'm not expecting them to be that way. I'm not putting that pressure on them. But those corners and safeties and everything else, they can fly around and make some plays, and they're going to hit you. And they're starting to figure out how to try to get them to the offense turn the ball over. And up front or in the box, we knew that the linebackers were going to have to be a big piece. And it sounds like I'm talking about the Bears defense too, but their linebacking core is going to have to make a lot of these plays for us, and they have been able to do that. And as fans, again, we have to be okay with long drives that don't really lead to points. Even if they give up a field goal, I know we don't want them to score, but just giving up a field goal is good. And then that way we can try to get in return, get our offense put into a good position. And the thing so far in these first 3 games, especially the Kansas game, we saw where there was no panic. And again, talking to some of the Illinois coaches over the offseason, they had a lot of guys come back because they felt like they left a lot on the table last year and they want to finish. So now when you go play at Nebraska, even times Nebraska hasn't been good over the last few years, going to play at Nebraska is a very tough environment. So how are you going to handle a tough road environment for the first time? Because we've been at home, right? We've had Eastern, we've had Kansas at home, and then we've had Central Michigan. So they've been at home. So that's another key piece to this. Later on in the week, I'm hoping to do like a pure breakdown of what needs to happen here in this game. But you like what you see, and then now you're ranked. And what does that mean? It helps in recruiting. It helps with Coach Bielema's tenure as a head coach, saying that you're getting Illinois ranked. Because as Illinois fans, we know we always have like a decent season. Maybe we're ranked. We're right there. We're beating Big Ten teams, doing whatever. And then the next year we take a big drop off, right? And sometimes that lasts for a year. Sometimes that lasts 2 years. And then all of a sudden that third year, that fourth year, oh, wait a minute. Illinois has a football team. Like they're starting to be looked at. And that was the whole thing with Coach or Mr. Whitman, Josh Whitman and Coach Bielema is consistency, right? Struggled your first year, then that 2022 you had a really good year, so we were hoping to have a similar-esque year, and then we only won 5 games. And so finally getting back to being ranked, I think being ranked is still a big deal. I know some don't, but I do. There's a reason why it's been around for a very long time, saying that, hey, the people watching you and your schedule, they think you're right now the 24th best team in FBS. That's what they think. And so that has to mean something. And I think these players have to appreciate that, but also say, we're not satisfied with being ranked number 24. That's cool, but we have bigger fish to fry. And I think that's what they will look at, because if we look at their schedule, it's a tough schedule. We talk about Nebraska. They are now ranked number 22 when you're at Nebraska. Then you got to go to Penn State, who people are picking to go to the playoffs. And they said if this 12-team playoff system was around, Penn State would have made a few playoffs. That's how highly ranked they have been. And they're at Penn State, which we all know is super, super tough to play in. Then you're home versus Purdue, which has become like a small rivalry with the Illinois coaches that went over there. Home against Michigan. Now, Michigan's not what they have been. They've struggled. But by that point on October 19th, have they figured it out? And then you go to Oregon. Oregon was not Oregon until this past weekend. So I was very curious about that game. Right now, they're number 9. You're home against Minnesota. And again, Minnesota is always that trap game. Are they going to come and hit you in the mouth and be very physical? Or Illinois had their number the last couple of years too. Home against Michigan State. Illinois should beat Michigan State like they should have last year. But Michigan State always seems to have Illinois' number in football. At Rutgers. And Rutgers, again, it's always that, are they going to come out and play very well, or are they going to be the Rutgers, no offense, that historically have they been? And then you're at Northwestern, which will be at Wrigley Field. Brad, this has to be the year that, yes, they have to be Purdue. They have to. And I think people really think Purdue is going to beat Illinois. I mean, right now they're 1-1. Purdue does not look that great. They just gave up 60-some points to Notre Dame that lost to Northern Illinois. And respect to Northern Illinois, I know about 2 coaches there. Respect to what they did. But you just lost 66-7. And Purdue does not they have to now play at Oregon State. And I know Oregon State just lost to Oregon, but they lost to Oregon. Then they got to play Nebraska. And then Wisconsin's not. Man, Wisconsin, they were poised to be a big-time season, and it's not going to happen. So, but Purdue could be pretty beat up coming into Illinois. And so I think, if Illinois is healthy and they get a little rhythm going, they can do it. I think this is the year they can beat Purdue. Right now, I know it's down the line right now. It's 81% on the predicted meter that Illinois would win. Because Purdue just does not look like the way they used to. Like right now, Purdue's quarterback has 397 yards passing with an air raid offensive coordinator. Luke Altmaier, 647 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, there's a chance Illinois can finally do it. And it's at Illinois, so I think there's a good chance. But there's a chance Illinois could be kind of sore coming in. But they get a break, though. They will have a break. They got to play Nebraska and then Penn State, then they get their bye week. So I think that bye week going into Purdue is going to be huge. So I think that they can pull it off. I think if they're healthy and the wide receivers continue to do what they do and our defense can just continue to grow into the system, that's going to be must-watch TV, October 12th, home against Purdue. And it's weird that's become like a small rivalry just in one. I know, I guess, has it been the last couple years? It seems like there's this little rivalry between Illinois and Purdue. But I know last year it really got ranked up when Coach Walters, defense coordinator, went over as the head coach. Linebacker coach left, a couple others left. And I think some players left. And that's always kind of weird. When you're an assistant coach and you go become a head coach, do you reach out to the coaches you just worked with on your staff and say, hey, come with me? Because I remember Nick Saban saying on the documentary, there's a documentary with Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, and Nick Saban said, hey, I want my assistants to go on and become coordinators, or if they're a certain position coach, get a promotion, go be head coaches. He goes, but don't try to take my staff and what I've built, try to build your own, right? Like he's like, I build my staff. And don't try like the year you leave, right? So that's always kind of a different thought, because I've thought about that too, where I was at a school and I said, if I go become a head coach, and some of the guys on the staff said, well, if you become a head coach, I'll go with you. And it was staff we just worked with. And I, always wondered that, is it a weird thing to do? But it felt kind of weird. Like we weren't mad. And then to take a head coaching job in the Big Ten, but I can't be mad about that. It's a head coaching job. You get an opportunity to try to build something for yourself, but it is weird that you get a head job and then you take the linebackers coach and you take this coach. And I don't know. I cannot remember if Bielema was upset about it but you had to think that, right? Like, he has to be a little like, hey, wait a minute. You took this head coaching job in the Big Ten. Cool. You're getting a head job, but you're taking my linebackers coach. You're taking my running backs coach, or who I can't quite remember exactly all the others, but that has to be kind of weird, right? So that'll be a nice rivalry game, and Illinois will be tested before that. Nebraska and Penn State, both on the road, both hostile environments, both big time environments. So they'll be tested coming into that. I don't think Purdue is not what they were last year. So I think Illinois can do it. So Illinois is 3-0. They're ranked number 24 in the nation, which is awesome. They have a tough road ahead of them now in the Big Ten. Again, Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Michigan, Oregon, Minnesota, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern. You'd like to think they can sneak one out at Nebraska. Purdue, they might even be able to sneak one out against Michigan. Minnesota, hopefully, Michigan State, Rutgers, and even Northwestern. So there's a window here where Illinois, if they can squeak one out with Nebraska, you're 4-0. Let's just say Penn State, they're beat up or whatever. But if they get 4 wins, if they can sneak one out with Purdue 5, Michigan 6, Minnesota 7, if they get Michigan State or Rutgers 8, and then maybe Minnesota, there is a small window here of 8-9 wins, which I said I think at the very least they can get like 6, somewhere in the neighborhood of the most they're going to get is 8 to 10. There is a small window because I like what I'm seeing, and as long as they can do it in a big time environment against the big time teams, should be okay. So this is just momentum for the Illinois. But as fans, we all know we can be happy in the moment, but we're just waiting to see, is it going to go the other way where we lose a couple games because this has happened before, and now we're not ranked, and now we're 5 losses in or 6 losses in. We've seen this before. Or is it going to turn that other way where in some of these games they're competing and they're right there? Have they learned how to finish against Michigan? Was it last year, the year before? Just couldn't finish. That horrible no flag call on that pick thing where, terrible. But can they finish, right? And we've had that against Purdue even. Like, can they finish? And Michigan States and stuff like that. And so can they learn how to finish? And that's going to be this big thing moving forward. But they're 3-0 ranked. People are working even saying like, oh, Illinois looks like they're playing well, and they're physical and have this good style of play and everything. So it's pretty exciting. Again, to be an Illinois fan is just, where's it going to go from here? So make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. I'm going to have an ILLINI playlist where all the Illinois athletics podcast episodes can be found. There's Bleed Blue, which will cover all of Eastern Illinois athletics, mainly football, but I'll do my best to cover it all. Bear Down, they discuss the Chicago Bears. And then there's talks on there with high school coaches, college coaches from every single level, JUCO all the way up to Power 5, all the way up. From all over the country. And then there's others, basketball, and then there's some in the sports reporting world, going to try to get that world to kind of opened up too. So like and subscribe, check out Apple and Spotify, follow on X and Instagram and TikTok, all that good stuff. Appreciate it. Leave comments in the comment section down below and do all that for me, helps grow it out. And some things coming down the pipe, which we'll get to at a later time. So thank you guys for watching and or listening. This is Coach Steve. We will see you guys next time.